In this video, we are looking at the remainder theorem. So the remainder theorem is like you have a polynomial and it's divided by a binomial. So if there is no remainder, this means when you substitute the value, you will get an answer of 0. So the polynomial divided by the binomial must give an answer of 0. This means there's no remainder. So all we do, we take the binomial, we let it equal to 0, and we solve for x. We then substitute that x value into the expression of the polynomial wherever we see x. And in this way, we can determine whether it's a remainder or it's not a remainder. So if there's no remainder, we will get an answer of 0. So example 1, we have minus 2 x to the power 3 plus 5x squared plus 7x minus 10. It is divided by x minus 1. So we can write this as a fraction, and sometimes as a question it will come like this. Okay, so step 1 is to say x minus 1, which is the denominator. Notice that the top polynomial is being divided by the bottom polynomial. So the top, the numerator, is divided by the bottom. Notice we are dividing by x minus 1. So we must let the denominator equal to 0. Next thing, we need to solve for x. X is equal to 1. Step 2, we will have to substitute x is equal to 1 into the equation. So we will substitute f of 1 into the equation. So wherever we see x, we will place a 1 there. So which equation are we substituting into? We are substituting into this equation in the numerator. So after substituting, we can simplify each term. So 1 to the power 3 will give us 1. 1 times minus 2 is minus 2. 1 squared will give us 1. Times it by 5 will give us 5. 7 times 1 is 7 minus 10. So simplifying that on a calculator, we will get 0. This means x minus 1 is a factor. So if we get an answer of 0 when substituting 1, which we got from here, this means that x minus 1 is a factor. So if the remainder is 0, then x minus 1 is a factor. In the next example, we're looking at f of x is divided by x minus 1. The remainder is equal to 3. So f of x is this equation given, this expression given, and it's going to be divided by x minus 1. So first step is to take that denominator and solve for x and substitute that into the equation. So we are going to substitute f of 1. So x minus 1 is equal to 0. This means f of 1. So wherever you see x, you are going to substitute the 1. Simplify that. You can use a calculator to help you. So 1 to the power 3 is still 1, and 1 squared is still 1. So you'll have 1 plus p minus 1 minus 3 equals minus 4. Leaving the p on the right hand side and taking the numbers over to the left hand side, 1 minus 4 is minus 3. So 1 minus 4 is minus 3. So on the right hand side, we have p minus 3. But do note that the remainder given was 3. So we will have to write 3 on the left hand side in order for us to solve for p. So 1 minus 4 is minus 3. Take minus 3 over to the other side, to the left hand side, we'll get 6. So therefore p is equal to 6. In the next example, which is exercise 3, we have minus 4 x to the power 3 plus 2 x to the power 2 minus 2 dividing by x plus 1. So obviously x plus 1 must be equal to 0. Solving for x, we'll get x is equal to minus 1. This means we're going to substitute f of minus 1. Substitute f of minus 1. Wherever we see x, we'll place a 1 there. So placing a 1, 1 to the power 3 is 1, 1 to the power 2 is 1. So minus 4 plus 2 minus 2. So plus 4 plus 2 minus 2. The remainder is equal to 4. So f of minus 1 is equal to 4. This means we have a remainder of 4. We didn't get a remainder of 0. Therefore, x plus 1 is not a factor. 3.2. f of x is equal to 7x to the third minus 6x squared plus 5x minus 4 divided by x minus 2. X minus 2, we will let it equal to 0 so that we can solve for x. So we're going to substitute f of 2. Substituting f of 2 into the equation. 2 to the power 3 is 8. 2 to the power 2 is 4. Right? Working all that out, the remainder is 38. This means that x minus 2 is not a factor. The remainder is 38. For it to be a factor, we'll have to get remainder is equal to 0. If the remainder is not 0, this means that which is in the bracket is not a factor. 3.5, f of x is equal to 2, x to the power 3 minus x squared minus 2x plus 1 divided by 2x minus 1. Solve for x, we'll get a half. So substitute f of a half into the equation. Right? So into the expression, substitute that. And on our calculator, what do we get as a final answer? Remainder 0. This means 2x minus 1 is a factor because the remainder is equal to 0. Calculate the value of a. Exercise 4. Given 4.1, x cubed plus a times x squared plus 8x minus 4 is divided by x minus 1. X minus 1 is equal to 0. This means x is equal to 1. Also given, the remainder is 0. So this means we can definitely solve for a. So this is actually a. So once we substitute our 1, we must let all of that equal to 0. Okay, so f of 1 into the equation. Answer on a calculator. So 1 plus 8 minus 4. Take a over. A is equal to minus 5. The next question. 6x cubed minus 19x squared plus 9x plus a divided by x minus 3. The remainder is 28. So all we're going to do here is at the end of it, we're going to let all of this equals to 28. Please note in the previous example, in 4.1, all of that was equal to 0. Why? Because the remainder was 0. So in other words, here there's a 0 there. Okay, so in this example, here it will be equal to 28. Notice that x will be 3. So all you have to do is let the bracket equal to 0. This means f of 3 is what will be substituted. So substituting 3 on your calculator. What will we do next? We'll add up all these whole numbers, take it over, and a will be equal to that. Where did we get this 28 from? Don't forget that all of this must be equal to 28, because why? The remainder is 28. In the previous example, that was a 0. So a is equal to 118. In 4.3, we have x cubed minus 3x squared plus ax minus 12 divided by x minus 4. So the remainder they tell us is 12. So x minus 4, we must let it equal to 0. This will mean x is equal to 4. So we must substitute f of 4 into the equation. And as we substituted, 4 to the power 3 is 64, minus 3 times 16, okay, will give us 48. And so we can substitute it all. Don't forget, x was equal to 4 because we substituted f of 4. Please note that that was a plus sign and not a minus sign. I made a mistake there. Right, so bringing all our numbers over to one side. Right, if we say 64 minus 48 plus 12, will give us minus 16, and take over our plus 4 to the other side. Right, a is equal to, divide both sides by 4. Divide both sides by 4, a is equal to negative 4. Next, we're looking at the factor theorem. So example 5, f of x is equal to minus 4 x cubed plus 2x squared minus 2 divided by x plus 2. So first thing, we have to solve for x. So x is equal to minus 1. Now we're going to substitute f of minus 1 into the equation. Plug it all in into our calculator. We're going to get 4 plus 2 minus 2. That's going to give us our answer of 4. So f of minus 1 is equal to 4. X plus 1 is not a factor. Why? Because we did not get an answer of 0. If we plugged all of this in and we got an answer of 0, this means that x plus 1 is a factor. In the next example, 5.2, it's divided by x minus 2. We have to solve for x. So, solving for x, we'll get an answer of 2. We're then going to substitute f of 2 into the equation. After substituting on our calculator, we will get the following numbers. Now, all that into a calculator, we get f of 2 is equal to 38. Notice, after we substituted 2, we didn't get an answer of 0. If we had an answer of 0, this would mean that x minus 2 is a factor. However, we had a remainder. If we receive a remainder as an answer, this would mean that x minus 2 in this case is not a factor. 5.3. Given the question, that's divided by x minus 1. So we have to let x minus 1 is equal to 0 so that we can solve for x and substitute x into the equation. So x is equal to 1. So f of 1 into the equation substituted, plug it into a calculator, we get this. Notice the answer is 0. Therefore, f of 1 was equal to 0. If we get an answer of 0, this would mean that x minus 1 is a factor. Don't forget the topic here is factor theorem. If you get an answer of 0, this would mean that your original denominator in each case would be a factor. If you do not get an answer of 0 and you actually get a remainder, it would mean that what you're dividing by is not a factor. Exercise 6.1. X minus 2 is a factor of that. In this case, they were telling you that it's a factor. So they want us to calculate a. So working out x, we will get 2. Substitute 2 into our equation. As we substitute it in, these are the answers we will receive. Solving for a, don't forget, we must let it equal to 0. Why? Because it said that x minus 2 is a factor. So 8 minus 2 is 6. Take it over to the other side, it will become minus 6. We get 2a is equal to minus 6. Divide both sides by 2, we'll get a is equal to minus 3. Always take your answer and substitute it back and make sure you get an answer of 0. This would mean that your answer is correct. So if you take this minus 3 and put it there for a, you'll get 8 minus 6 minus 2, which will give you 0. And that's how you can check your answer. 6.2. X plus 3 is a factor of the expression. So we need to solve what is x. Okay, so they want us to calculate n in this example, and we can find the value of x. So x is minus 3. Substituting minus 3 into the equation, we then get n. And for each one, we can work out each term using our calculator. Don't forget, we're going to let it equal to 0 because the question said that x plus 3 is a factor. So if it's a factor, we let it equal to 0. So on our calculator, we'll get the answer for each one. And then we're going to solve for n. So taking all your numbers into a calculator, simplify it and move it over to the other side, n is equal to 9. Exercise 6.3. 3x plus 1 is a factor of the expression. So we need to solve for x, and because it's a factor, we'll then let it equal to 0 and solve for p. Okay, so we must find p in this example. So calculate p. So 3x plus 1 is equal to 0, x is equal to minus 1/3. So take over, the plus 1 will become minus 1 divided by 3, 1/3. We then substitute it into the equation and we solve for p. So simplifying each one on a calculator and writing it down, and then solving for the unknown. So taking these over, so minus 1/9, take it over, it'll become plus 1/9. Plus 3 minus 4 is minus 1. Taking it over, it'll become plus 1. We left with minus 1/9 times p, which is the same as p over 9. It means the same thing. So 1/9 of p is the same as p divided by 9. So taking it over, it'll become minus p over 9, right? Minus p over 9. And if we take it over, it's going to become plus p over 9. Okay? So divide both sides by 9, and we'll get p is equal to minus 10. So notice here, we will have minus p. If you divide both sides by negative 9, then you have the answer p equals minus 10. (7.1) Given x minus 1 is a factor of the expression. So x minus 1 equals 0, x is equal to 1. Now here, they told us that it is a factor. And we are trying to find out what are all the factors of that expression. So this thing called this division, synthetic division. So x minus 1 was what was given. So obviously, it's the 1 that we are using. Now you might wonder, where did I get all these 1s? Don't forget, these are the coefficients in front of the expression. So for example, there's a 1 in front of x cubed. There's a minus 1 in front of x squared. There's a minus 1 in front of x. And lastly, there's a 1. So this is where I get these 1s. Look at it nicely. Pause the video. Make sense of it. So this is a positive. That's a positive. Positive, positive. In the center, negative, 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 negative. They're all 1s. So this is the first example because it's basic. So the first step is to bring down the first one. Okay? And you write it there. So the method here is to multiply, place it, add it, multiply, place it, add it. And that's the sequence you will follow. It's like a dance. So bringing the first 1 down, I'm going to say 1 times 1. Now 1 times 1 is 1. Now I'm going to add them. Minus 1 plus 1 is 0. 1 times 0 is 0. Minus 1 plus 0 is minus 1. 1 times minus 1 is minus 1. 1 plus minus 1 is 0. This means that the remainder is 0. X minus 1 is a factor. True. It definitely is. That's why we have an answer of 0 at the last place. So don't forget, we were dividing by x minus 1. x minus 1 is definitely a factor. The first number means that it's x squared. The second number is x to the power 1. This one means there's no x's, and the last column, the answer is a remainder, looking at this row here. Okay, so one more time, this row here, this x squared is this one. This x represents there's no x's. The numbers will be minus 1. Okay, so our first one, we said the first bracket was a factor. This was the same one that was given, x minus 1. There's it here, x minus 1. And now we have x squared minus 1. Where did I get this from? X squared, yes, I have him. And I have minus 1. Minus 1 has no, can you see there's a 0 there? Has no x's. Okay, you with me? Now, if I multiply all this out using FOIL, guess what? I'm going to get this exactly. So it would be good for you to try it now. Right, now if I factorize this guy, I'm going to get what? So if I factorize this, I'm going to get x minus 1, x plus 1. It's the difference of squares. Okay, so if I factorize the difference of squares, I'm going to get x plus 1, x minus 1. If I FOIL all of this out, I'm definitely going to get that again. Okay, let's try it. Let's test it. So testing this, we're going to put it in the FOIL method. So x times x squared will give us x cubed. X times minus x will give us minus x. Minus 1 times x squared will give us minus x squared. Minus 1 times minus 1 will give us plus 1. Change the order. You have exactly the same question given, which means this answer here is perfectly correct. Okay, so factorize, there's another way we could do it. We didn't have to use a synthetic division method. We could have factorized it because it is quite factorizable. Remember, we learned grouping in class. Group the first two, group the second two. What is common in the first two? X squared. If we take out x squared, we're left with x minus 1. So x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times minus 1 is minus x squared. Next, we're going to take out minus 1 out of these two. So if I take out minus 1, I'm left with x. Minus 1 times x is minus x. Minus 1 times minus 1 is positive 1. What is common now is x minus 1 is common. So remove x minus 1, and what is left? X squared minus 1. Do you notice we're going right back there? Right? And then you can factorize that further to get x minus 1, x plus 1. So class, if you want to find the y-intercept and you want to draw this cubic function, so here's a cubic function, and you want to draw it, y-intercept, let x equal 0. So if you substitute 0 for all these x's, obviously you're going to get an answer of 1. So this means where x is 0, y is 1. Okay, this will give us the coordinate 0 and 1. So that's your y-intercept. For us to find the x-intercept, we let y equal 0. And if we let y equal 0, as you can see up here, we can work out what all the x's are. So let each bracket equal 0, and this is how you will find the x-intercepts. So we have minus 1 for the first bracket on the right hand side, because minus 1 plus 1 is 0. And here we have positive 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. So this means these are our coordinates. When x was 1, we let y equal 0. When x was minus 1, we let y equal 0. We can take these 3 points and now plot them on a Cartesian plane. So here's our Cartesian plane, here's the y-intercept. 0, x is 0, y is 1. There we have minus 1 and 1 on the x-intercepts. Don't forget that the x-axis is the horizontal axis. This is horizontal. Those are our values. Join up the points. That's practically what our graph would look like. 7.2, given f of x, x to the cube minus 2x squared minus 4x plus 8. Which are factors? So in the question is saying here in 7.2.1, this question is on the worksheet. They're asking which of these are factors. So what we have to do, we have to let this whole bracket equal 0, this whole bracket equal 0, this whole bracket equal 0, solve for x and substitute x into that equation, into that expression. So notice x plus 1, it's going to be x of minus 1 that we are going to substitute, and we substitute it into our equation. We are going to get an answer of 9. So because we had an answer, a remainder, we're supposed to get an answer of 0 if x plus 1 is a factor. So if x plus 1 is a factor, this would mean my answer must be 0. I have an answer of 9, which means that x plus 1 is not a factor. So at this point, we can find the y-intercept. We can let x equal 0. And if we let x equal to 0 for the expression that's given, we will get 0 and minus 8. So we're saying there in the original, let all the x's be 0. This means we'll get an answer of 8. So when x is 0, y is minus 8. So now we're going to try f of minus 2. We're looking at the second bracket. So substituting into the equation, x of minus 2, we get an answer of 0. What does this mean? This means that x plus 2 is a factor. Right? So this is the one that we worked out now, x plus 2. The next one is x minus 2. This means we will substitute, solve for x, we are going to substitute f of 2. F of 2, substituted into the equation. On your calculator, work all of that out. How much do we get? We get x minus 2 is equal to 0. So since we substituted here and we got an answer of 0, this means that x minus 2 is a factor because f of 2 is equal to 0. Okay, so which two are factors? The two on the extreme right are factors. So using this one, x plus 2, this means we are going to use the number 2. Right? So x minus 2 as our bracket. This bracket here, we are going to use the number 2. Right? So bringing the 1 down, 2 times 1 is going to be 2. Right? So that 2 times this 1 is 2. Then we're going to add. Adding them, we are going to get 0. 2 times 0 is 0. Minus 4 plus 0 is minus 4. 2 times minus 4 is minus 8. Add those two numbers up, we're going to get 0. If we got 0, this means that it's a factor. So definitely x minus 2 is a factor. So writing it out, x minus 2 is most certainly a factor. Writing it out as x minus 2 in our brackets, we can now write this value here. Don't forget, this first one will be x squared, the next one is x, and the next one is the number. In other words, it has no x's, and the last number is the remainder. So taking it from there, this will be our second bracket. So we have x squared, 1x squared minus 4. 1x squared minus 4. Isn't that the difference of squares? X squared minus 4. Yes, it is. So let's factorize it. We're going to get x minus 2, x plus 2. So if we let y equal 0, this means all those x's will be the opposite of those brackets, and we can find the x-intercepts. So for x-intercepts, we let y equal 0. This means for that first bracket, this x will be 2. For the second bracket, the x will also be 2. For the last bracket, x will be minus 2. So this will give us the points 2 and 0 and minus 2 and 0. So now we have 3 points. So we have the y-intercept here above. We have the y-intercept 0 and minus 8. We have the x-intercept 2 and 0. We have the other x-intercept minus 2 and 0. We can then plot it. Don't forget, our y-intercepts can also be found by just looking at the last number. So plotting that on the Cartesian plane, don't forget y is the vertical axis, x is the horizontal axis, and we can now put our minus 2 and our positive 2. Don't forget 8 is the y-intercept. We can join all those points, and that is our cubic function drawn. Right, class, you can watch this video again, pause it for understanding, hopefully you will get how to graph the cubic function.